In 1956, the world held its breath. A narrow strip of water, carved through desert sand, became the fault line of a collapsing empire. The Suez Crisis of 1956 was a geopolitical earthquake, a collision of empire, nationalism, Cold War tension, and a young Egyptian colonel, Gamal Abdel Nasser, who would rise from regional officer to global symbol of anti-imperialism. The Suez Crisis, 1956, the moment the world stood on edge. Why the Suez Canal mattered. The Suez Canal, opened in 1869, was the shortest sea link between Europe and Asia. By the 20th century, it was the artery of the British Empire, carrying oil from the Persian Gulf to Europe. Britain had purchased a 44% stake in the canal in 1875 and effectively controlled Egypt after 1882. Even after Egypt's nominal independence, Britain maintained military bases and influence over the canal. By the 1950s, the canal symbolized colonial power and the growing desire of colonized nations to reclaim sovereignty. From free officer to national leader. His name was Gamal Abdel Nasser. And his decision would ignite the Arab world, shake the Cold War, and expose the twilight of European empire. Early revolutionary credentials. Nasser was a young officer shaped by anti-British sentiment and street protests in his youth. He co-founded the Free Officers Movement, which overthrew King Farouk in 1952. By 1954, he sidelined General Naguib and became Egypt's dominant political figure. Why Nasser became a global figure. He embodied Arab nationalism, anti-colonialism, and independence from both Cold War blocs. His boldness, especially nationalizing the Suez Canal, catapulted him onto the world stage. The trigger, nationalization of the Suez Canal. On July 26, 1956, Nasser stunned the world by announcing that Egypt was nationalizing the Suez Canal Company, previously controlled by Britain and France. Why he did it. The US and Britain withdrew funding for the Aswan High Dam after Egypt bought arms from Soviet-aligned Czechoslovakia. Nasser declared that canal revenues would finance the dam. He framed the move as reclaiming Egyptian sovereignty. This act electrified the Arab world and enraged Britain and France. The secret plot: Britain, France, and Israel. Britain and France saw Nasser as a threat to their influence. Israel saw him as a military danger. The Sèvres Protocol, secret meeting. In October 1956, representatives of Britain, France, and Israel met secretly near Paris. The plan. Israel would invade Sinai. Britain and France would issue an ultimatum to separate the combatants. When Egypt refused, they would invade and seize the canal. This was a coordinated attempt to topple Nasser. The war, October-November 1956. Phase 1, Israeli invasion. On October 29, Israel launched a massive assault into Sinai, routing Egyptian forces. Phase 2, Anglo-French intervention. Britain and France bombed Egyptian airfields and landed troops at Port Said on November 5 to 6. Militarily, they succeeded quickly. But geopolitically, they lost. The global reaction, a new world order. United States. President Eisenhower opposed the invasion, fearing it would push Arab states toward the USSR. The US forced Britain, France, and Israel to withdraw through economic and diplomatic pressure. Soviet Union. The USSR threatened intervention while simultaneously crushing the Hungarian uprising, showing Cold War tensions at their peak. United Nations. A UN emergency force was deployed, the first of its kind. Outcome: a strategic defeat for empires, a triumph for Nasser. Egypt emerged victorious and retained control of the canal. Nasser became a hero of Arab nationalism and a symbol of anti-imperialism. Britain and France suffered global humiliation. The crisis marked the end of Britain's role as a world superpower. Israel gained temporary access to the Straits of Tiran but withdrew under pressure. Global politics. The crisis demonstrated that old colonial powers could no longer act without U.S. approval. How Nasser became a global icon. Nasser's stature skyrocketed because he defied two major European powers and survived. This alone made him a symbol of resistance. He nationalized a vital global waterway and kept it. A bold act of sovereignty that inspired the developing world. He positioned Egypt as a leader of the non-aligned movement. He became a voice for nations seeking independence from both Cold War blocs. He ignited the imagination of the Arab world. His charisma and rhetoric unified millions under the banner of Arab nationalism. And so, as the guns fell silent and the invaders withdrew, the world awoke to a new reality. The age of empires, built on distant shores and enforced by distant flags, had cracked open before the eyes of millions. In that fracture stood one man, unbroken, his voice echoing from Cairo to every corner of the global south. Gamal Abdel Nasser had not merely defended a canal, he had defended the right of a people to stand tall. The Suez Crisis did not end with treaties or troop withdrawals, it ended with a message that thundered across continents. The world would no longer be shaped by the few, but by the many who dared to claim their place in history.